What's good, y'all? And welcome to another preseason preview video. In today's video, we're going over the Portland Trailblazers. In case this is your first preseason preview video of mine that you're seeing, basically what I do is go over all the offseason moves the team made, give a little recap there, and then look into the future and try to see what we can expect from this upcoming season. Before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. Once you're done watching this video, make sure you check out the description. There's a link to a playlist that'll bring you to all the other preseason preview videos I've done. And without further ado, let's take a look at the additions the Portland Trailblazers made this offseason. The Blazers didn't make many moves, but they did make good moves, going out and trading for Deni Avdija from the Washington Wizards and then drafting Donovan Clingan from UConn. I want to start by talking about Deni Avdija because the Blazers going out and trading for him is honestly one of my favorite moves of the entire offseason. I really like him coming over to a rebuilding Portland team because he still is super young, only 23 years old, and he's such a versatile player that I think he can come to Portland and kind of just fill in whatever they need. If they need him to score a little bit more, he can do that, get to the rim. Last year, he had a career year shooting the three ball as well. If they need a little bit more playmaking, he is a solid point forward type of player that can make those reads and those passes, run a little bit of pick and roll. He's a solid rebounder. He's got great size. He can run a little bit of small forward, a little bit of power forward, again, depending on what the Blazers need. I just love that he can do a little bit of everything. I didn't even bring up his defense, which he is also incredibly good at. Super versatile and can guard multiple positions. I was a little confused on why Washington traded him, but I mean, obviously they got their value back in that trade as well. But for Portland specifically, I absolutely love this trade, and I think Deni is going to have a great year out here. And then the drafting of Donovan Clingan, I think, is pretty solid as well. Super talented player, two-time national champion over there for UConn as well, so he knows what it takes to win. He's much more of a traditional center, 7'2", super solid body as well. Got great touch around the rim. He really lives in the rim and the post moves. That's where his bread and butter is, offensively at least. He also is a fantastic rebounder, both offensively and defensively. He's not the most athletic in the world, but he uses his size to his advantage on defense, deterring players at the rim. My one little concern with him is, can he keep up with the NBA speed, whether that's going back and forth, up the court, or on defense, guarding in space. He is a slower footed big since he is such a big guy. So that's just something to kind of key into to see if he can really fix that about his game and still survive in this super fast-paced athletic NBA. I think he should be solid though, and I like the pick overall for Portland. Can't bring guys in without losing some, so let's take a look at the guys they lost this offseason. Malcolm Brogdon had a short but sweet tenure here in Portland. Last season he came here a part of the Damian Lillard trade, and now he got shipped out to Washington in exchange for Deni Avdija. I remember thinking to myself last offseason that Malcolm Brogdon was not going to last on the Portland Trailblazers. He's just too valuable of a player to just kind of sit there. A lot of contending teams, in my eyes, would want to go out there and trade for him. Obviously, that's not what happened. He spent the whole last season here in Portland, even though only playing 39 games. And when he was playing, he was solid. He was a good steadiness at the point guard spot, a nice veteran guy to have on this super young team. And now they shipped him out alongside with a first-round pick for Deni Avdija. I was just saying how good Deni was and how excited I am here that he is in Portland. So I have no issues with them trading a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, considering age and considering where the team's at right now. It just doesn't make sense to really have him here. So to get that much value for him, I'm super happy. And now that we have an idea of who came and who went, let's take a look at a potential rotation we could be seeing this season. In the starting lineup, we have Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Deni Avdija, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton. And then coming off the bench, we have Delano Banton, shaedonsharpe, Jabari Walker, Toumani Camara, and Donovan Clingan. The Portland Trailblazers are still super early in their rebuild, and right now their strategy is just get as much talent on this team as possible. I mean, we just saw it there with the acquisition of Deni Avdija, obviously drafting Donovan Clingan, even in years past too, just drafting guys like Scoot or just whoever basically is best available player. That seems like what Portland has kind of been going for. Again, just getting as much talent as possible on the roster. It kind of leads them down a road where they have some log jams at positions though, and I feel like they're going to have to make some decisions coming up soon. I know it's already been talked about very slightly, but having three guards that you're trying to grow all at once just isn't really going to work out in my eyes. I feel like it's going to be hard to get all of them the minutes they deserve. And those three guards, of course, are Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and shaedonsharpe. You know, I'm really excited to see year 2 of Scoot Henderson because he had a pretty underwhelming rookie season. I think it's safe to say that, coming off the number 2 overall picks, and you know, obviously if you're Victor Wembanyama and then you're the guy right behind that, you still have those super high expectations. It was a shaky year for Scoot, but overall I still see the promise in him and I still see the potential and the ceiling. When it comes down to it, he just really wasn't an efficient scorer. I'm looking this season to try to get that back up and get, you know, overall just his field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, whatever it is, just get that a little bit higher. Specifically his finishing at the rim coming into the NBA, that was his main calling card. He was a super athletic guard that can get to the rim and finish. Last season, again, he was pretty underwhelming finishing wise, so I would look to see if he can get back to his bread and butter there, get to the rim more often, and convert those opportunities. I also am kind of hoping that this offseason he's been working on his catch and shoot shots. He takes a lot of 3-pointers off the dribble, and when I look at the numbers, he wasn't shooting well, high percentage off the dribble or catch and shoot, honestly. Catch and shoot is just an easier look and an easier shot to knock down, so to try to just get his jumper right, I would hope he's just working on that. And then also I would look to get his turnovers down. I mean, that's kind of expected with a rookie, especially a rookie point guard. It's been talked about that the point guard position is one of the hardest to play as a rookie. So hopefully in year 2, he kind of has the experience of reading an NBA defense and can kind of get that back on track a little bit. And then the starting guard next to him is Anthony Simons. I would say that he is by far the most polished out of these 3 guards, but he also is the oldest. I mean, I use oldest pretty loosely considering he's only 24 years old, but still, you know, when you're a rebuilding team, that still makes sense considering Scoot is 20 years old, shaedonsharpe is what, 21, you know, that's a 3 or 4 year difference. And I know I had him coming off the bench, but I do think that shaedonsharpe has the most potential. I feel like he's super athletic and a great finisher. The 3-point shot he's shown some flashes of, you know, the corner 3 specifically, he's been very solid in his career. If he's able to kind of just spread that to the rest of the arc, that would really expand his game a lot. The mid-range game, he's shown some flashes as well. Just all around offensively, he looks like he could be a great scorer in this league, and I'm super excited to see what he can continue to grow into. Obviously, last year he was dealing with injuries and missed a big chunk of time, but overall, if the Trailblazers do decide to trade one of these 3, I would say most likely it would be Anthony Simons, considering he would probably have some of the most value out of these 3, at least to a contending team. And then also the fact that he is the oldest, like I said, you have to take that into account. I don't know if Portland would trade one of these guys this season, maybe next offseason, whatever it is. It's just something to think about because I do think it would be hard to grow all 3 of these guys at once. And while we're talking about the depth that this team has, let's take a look at their biggest strength because they go hand in hand. The front court depth that the Portland Trailblazers have is absolutely absurd. Here I have listed 9 players that I think could seriously deserve rotational minutes. Obviously, not everyone here can have a solidified role, but that just goes to show the amount of bodies that they have. And I put their front court depth as their biggest strength, but they're almost deep to a fault because a lot of those guys, or not a lot, but a few of those guys definitely deserve the role, but they're not going to have it. Just from looking at the potential depth chart that I put up there, guys like Chris Murray, Duop Reith, Robert Williams, even Matisse Thybulle, he's kind of a tweener between a guard and a forward. I didn't have him on that list, but that just goes to show you the amount of depth that they have on this roster. They have 4 legitimate centers on their roster right now that deserve minutes and probably would get minutes across majority of the league. In their rotation right now, I did have their 2 centers as DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan, and I do think that that's who they would roll with, but that kind of leads Duop Reith and Robert Williams in a weird spot, and I would assume they would trade at least one of them. I'm not sure which one they would ultimately decide to trade though, because Robert Williams does have his health concerns. Obviously, last season only playing 6 games for the Trailblazers, and then even when you look further throughout his career, he's dealt with injuries almost every single year. And then Duop Reith, he has a really team-friendly contract, kind of older in age, even though he was just a rookie last season. I believe he's 27 or 28. So it's hard to really gauge where they would value those guys on the team, where other teams would value them in a trade, and what they would be able to get back. But I would have to assume they would have to trade at least one of them. But that wouldn't really change anything rotational wise if they trade one of those two, considering I don't have them as a solidified rotational player. If they wanted to trade someone to open up minutes for people, I would have to assume that Jeremy Grant would be the #1 candidate. I know that there were rumors that the Lakers were tied to Jeremy Grant. I'm sure there's other contending teams that would want Jeremy Grant on their roster because he does do a lot of positive things: defense, shooting, even just all around scoring. But if they were to move off of him, that would open up more minutes for guys like Toumani Camara or Jabari Walker. Can even open up minutes to slot in some new guys into the rotation like Matisse Thybulle or Chris Murray, maybe even Duop Reith at a power forward spot. They just have so much talent here that I feel like it's going to be maybe just a little bit difficult to see what you have fully and to actually develop these guys, because I think it's going to be hard to have a solidified role. I do think that their rotation is going to be very fluid. A lot of times with rebuilding teams or tanking teams, depending on what you want to call it, it is a very fluid lineup because, of course, you will have injuries throughout the year. Once it gets further down into the season, a lot of times teams will shut certain players down and just, not play them. That opens up more minutes. So, like I said, I think it's going to be very fluid. I think there's going to be a lot of guys in and out of the rotation, but I do think that might make it a little bit difficult to really develop these young guys. And although it was a weird strength, now that we went over their strength, we do have to take a look at their biggest weakness. The Blazers don't have a lot of high volume three-point shooters on their roster. Here I have the players listed by three-point attempts per game from last season, alongside with their three-point percentage compared to league average, which was 36.6%. Now, I put three-point percentage as their weakness, but honestly, I feel like just offense as a whole is their weakness. And I think a big part of that is the fact that they have no real playmaker on their roster. Scoot Henderson is a pretty solid playmaker, but he still is young, and I expect these growing pains to exist at least a little bit in his second season. Anthony Simons is solid, but he definitely would be considered score first in my mind. Bringing in a guy like Denny Avdia is definitely going to help. But then again, how much is he going to have the ball considering you have a point guard like Scoot Henderson? I just feel like it's kind of easy to fall into just like a ISO or AAU ball, as some people like to call it, where it's just one guy at the top of the key and they're like, all right, dribble, 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 try to get to a step back or try to, get to their spot and rise up above the defense. But it's not good offense. It's not easy offense like that. What you want to do is get to the rim, help collapse the defense, kick out, and then find the open man from there. If you have no true playmaker, though, or a guy that's looking to get other people involved, it could get really rough at times. And when this team does devolve into just, all right, go get a bucket, go ISO and try to score, their #1 and #2 options are Anthony Simons and Shaedon Both of these guys are solid bucket getters and can get you a bucket for sure. But when you look across the league compared to all the other top, 1 and 2 options to get a bucket, I mean, the talent is just not there. And I mean, that is expected considering they are a rebuilding team. But I mean, when we're talking about weaknesses here, their offense, I think, could be really bad. And now it is time for my ceiling, floor, and expectations for the Portland Trailblazers. I'm going to kind of do them all in one because they all are very similar. At their ceiling, I could see them being as high as the 14th seed. I know it's not a very high ceiling. At their floor, I can see them being at the 15th seed. And my expectations, I do think they will probably be the 15th seed. Like I said, this team is very early in their rebuild. The talent right now, it's just all about gathering it and kind of just sifting through. They don't really know what they have right now, and that is okay. But when you compare this team to the rest of the West, I mean, the West is super, super deep and has a lot of good teams. There are legit 12 or 13 teams that are trying to make the play-in tournament right now. Not even just the playoffs, just the play-in tournament. The Portland Trailblazers are unfortunately not anywhere near that, and they are going to be really, really bad. But on the bright side, this draft class is super, super good from what I've been hearing. Obviously, Cooper Flagg is the headliner of that. So if you're a Portland Trailblazers fan, it's not the worst thing in the world if you guys lose a bunch of games. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments below where you think the Portland Trailblazers will end off in this year's standings. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.